The snow fell in thick, relentless sheets over Minneapolis, turning the streets into a blurred white canvas where headlights struggled to pierce the night. Winter pines stood tall against the storm, a sleek high-rise of glass and steel home to the city's elite executives in tailored coats, families with perfect holiday cards, laughter spilling from penthouses decorated like magazine spreads. But for Elliot Hayes, the building was just a job, a place where he fixed what broke while remaining invisible. At 25, Elliot had grown used to blending into the background. Born and raised in the quieter, rougher edges of the city's north side, he was the black technician who kept the heat running and the pipes from bursting. His uniform navy coveralls stained with grease and plaster marked him as staff, not resident. He lived in a small basement apartment the management offered as a perk, a space barely big enough for his twin bed, a second-hand couch, and the handmade wooden Christmas tree he'd crafted from scrap lumber years ago. It leaned slightly in the corner, strung with a single strand of multicolored lights that flickered when the heat kicked on. A few worn stockings hung from the shelf, remnants from his mother's scent before cancer took her 3 winters back. No cards on the mantel. No invitations to the holiday parties echoing through the upper floors. Elliot didn't complain. He showed up early, fixed leaks in marble bathrooms, rewired outlets in kitchens bigger than his entire place, and nodded politely when residents thanked him without learning his name. Christmas was just another shift, another night of eating frozen pizza alone, while the world above celebrated with champagne and carols. This year felt heavier, though. The cold seeped deeper, mirroring the quiet ache he'd carried since losing his mom, the one person who'd made the holidays feel like home. He baked cookies from her old recipe, the scent of cinnamon and vanilla filling his cramped kitchen, but there was no one to share them with. Then came Lydia Kim. She arrived in early December, moving into the top-floor penthouse with a team of movers who handled her minimalist furniture like priceless art. 36 Korean-American CEO of Luminary Labs, a tech empire she'd built from a garage startup into a billion-dollar force. The residents buzzed about her, the ice queen in designer suits, freshly divorced from some Wall Street hotshot sharp enough to make boardrooms tremble. Lydia glided through the lobby in heels that clicked like judgments, her dark hair pulled into flawless ponytails, eyes scanning everything with calculated detachment. Whispers followed her too, the kind reserved for powerful women who didn't fit the mold. Too ambitious for a husband, they'd say behind manicured hands. Asian boss lady, bet she's ruthless in bed and out. Elliot had seen her only in passing, a nod in the elevator, a brief thank you when he held the door. She was beautiful in that untouchable way, high cheekbones, porcelain skin, a presence that commanded space without trying. But he noticed the subtle things, the way her shoulders tensed under scrutiny, the faint shadows under her eyes despite the perfect makeup. She was new money in a building of old expectations, starting over after a marriage that had crumbled under the weight of her success. One evening, just days before Christmas, the storm hit hard. Elliot was out front clearing snow from the entrance awning, his breath fogging in the frigid air. Headlights cut through the flurry as a black SUV pulled up. Lydia stepped out, bundled in a long wool coat, struggling with a heavy suitcase, that wheels catching in the slush. Snowflakes clung to her lashes as she wrestled it toward the doors. Without thinking, Elliot set down his shovel and jogged over. "Let me get that for you, Ms. Kim." She looked up, startled, her cheeks flushed from the cold. For a moment, her guarded expression softened. "Oh, thank you. It's heavier than it looks." He lifted it easily, muscles straining under his jacket as he carried it inside. The lobby's warmth hit like a wave, scented with pine from the massive tree in the center. Lydia followed, shaking snow from her boots. "You're a lifesaver," she said, her voice smoother than he'd expected, with a faint accent that spoke of roots in Seoul before Seattle boardrooms. "Elliot, right?" He nodded, surprised she remembered. "Yeah, no problem. Storm's getting worse. Stay warm up there." She smiled faintly, the first real one he'd seen from her, and disappeared into the elevator. That night, Elliot was back outside, stringing fresh lights along the balcony railings for the building's holiday display. The wind whipped at his face, numbing his fingers as he twisted wires. Snow muffled the city sounds, leaving only the soft hum of traffic far below. Footsteps crunched behind him. He turned to see Lydia approaching, wrapped in a fur-trimmed coat, her dark hair loose against the red fabric of an evening gown peeking beneath. She carried a tin of cookies and a Santa hat perched playfully on her head, a stark contrast to her usual armor. "Working late again?" she asked, stopping a few feet away. "Holiday lights don't hang themselves," Elliot replied with a shrug, wiping his hands on his jeans. Up close, she smelled like vanilla and winter air, her eyes reflecting the glow of the strands he'd just fixed. She held out the tin. "Baked these earlier. Figured the building Santa could use a treat." He took it, chuckling. "Santa, huh?" Lydia's lips curved, a hint of playfulness breaking through her reserve. "If Santa were real, Elliot, what would you wish for this year?" The question caught him off guard. He paused, screwdriver in hand, staring at the twinkling lights. Laughter drifted from windows above, families gathering, glasses clinking. His chest tightened with that familiar ache. "Probably. Just for someone to remember I'm here during all this," he said quietly, the words slipping out before he could stop them. Lydia studied him, her expression shifting, something vulnerable flickering in her eyes, gone as quickly as it came. She pulled a small notepad from her coat pocket, tore out a sheet, and handed it to him with a pen. "I'm playing Santa for the building this year," she said softly. "Write it down, your real wish. I'll keep it secret." Elliot hesitated, the snow swirling around them. Then he scribbled, hands trembling slightly from the cold, or maybe something else. "I just want someone to share Christmas dinner with me this year." He folded the paper and gave it back. Lydia unfolded it, read in silence, her breath catching just a fraction. When she looked up, her eyes held a sadness that mirrored his own. She reached out, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder, the touch warm through his jacket, lingering a second longer than necessary. "Merry Christmas, Elliot," she whispered, before turning back toward the doors, the red of her gown a vivid streak against the white night. He watched her go, the tin of cookies heavy in his hands, the weight in his chest a little lighter under the falling snow. The morning light filtered through the frosted windows of winter pines, casting a soft glow over the snow-covered courtyard. Elliot stood in front of his bathroom mirror, wiping steam from the glass after a quick shower. His phone buzzed on the sink, a message from an unknown number in the building's resident directory. "Good morning, Elliot. This is Lydia Kim from the penthouse. I read your wish last night. Christmas this year I refuse to spend it alone. Would you join me today to deliver gifts to the seniors at Evergreen Community Center? I'd really like the company." He stared at the screen, thumb hovering. No one from the upper floors had ever texted him for anything but a maintenance request. And Lydia Kim, the woman who commanded boardrooms and headlines, wanted him to go with her. Elliot typed back carefully, "I'd like that. What time? Meet me in the lobby at 10. Dress warm." He arrived early, bundled in his best coat, a thrift store find that fit well enough, and boots crusted with salt from the sidewalks. The lobby smelled of fresh pine and cinnamon from the concierge's potpourri. Lydia appeared right on time, stepping out of the elevator in a long camel coat, fur-lined hood framing her face. She carried 2 large bags overflowing with wrapped presents, ribbons peeking out like colorful secrets. "Morning," she said, her breath visible in the chill as they stepped outside. "Thanks for saying yes. I wasn't sure you would." Elliot took one of the bags without asking, slinging it over his shoulder. "Not many people invite the maintenance guy to play elf." She glanced at him sideways, a small smile playing on her lips. Maybe they should start. The drive to Evergreen was quiet at first, the SUV's heater humming against the cold. Snowplows rumbled in the distance, clearing paths through the city. Lydia navigated the slick roads with ease, her hands steady on the wheel. "I've done this every year since my divorce," she said eventually, eyes on the road. "The seniors remind me that loneliness doesn't discriminate by bank account or title." Elliot nodded, watching the blurred white landscape. "My mom used to drag me to places like this when I was a kid. Said giving back kept the holidays real." Lydia pulled into the parking lot of the modest community center, its windows decorated with paper snowflakes and strings of lights. Inside, the air was warm and thick with the scent of coffee and evergreens. A group of elderly residents gathered in the common room, faces lighting up as Lydia and Elliot entered. "Look who Santa sent," an older woman exclaimed, clapping her hands. They spent the next few hours handing out gifts, scarves Lydia had imported from Korea, books, puzzles, handmade ornaments. Elliot helped a man in a wheelchair reach a high shelf for his new hat, steadying him with a gentle hand. Another resident, a frail black woman with silver hair, pulled Elliot aside. "You're a good boy," she said softly, patting his cheek. "Strong hands, kind heart. Don't let this world make you hard." He swallowed the words, hitting deeper than expected. Lydia watched from across the room, her expression unreadable as she chatted with a group of ladies. One of them, a white woman with curlers still in her hair, leaned in conspiratorially. "That young man with you, he's sweet on you, isn't he?" Lydia laughed lightly. "Elliot's my friend, the best one in the building, actually." The words carried across the room, and Elliot felt heat rise in his cheeks. No one had ever called him that friend, let alone the best. By noon, the gifts were distributed, hugs exchanged, photos taken. As they loaded the empty bags back into the SUV, snow began falling again, fat flakes drifting lazily. "Come back to my place," Lydia said suddenly. "I have all this food prepped for a dinner that was supposed to feed one. Help me make it feed two." Elliot hesitated only a second. "Lead the way." Her penthouse was everything he'd imagined, and nothing like it. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the snow-draped city, a massive tree twinkling in the corner with elegant silver ornaments. The kitchen was state-of-the-art, marble counters, sub-zero appliances, but felt untouched, like a showroom. "I can cook," Elliot offered, rolling up his sleeves as Lydia pulled ingredients from the fridge. She raised an eyebrow. "Better than me, I hope. Last time I tried turkey, I nearly burned the place down." Raw. They worked side by side, the space filling with the sizzle of butter in pans and the rich aroma of herbs. Elliot seasoned the bird with practiced ease skills learned from years of fending for himself, while Lydia chopped vegetables with careful, deliberate strokes. She laughed when flour dusted her nose during biscuit making, a genuine sound that echoed in the high ceilings. "This feels normal," she said quietly, stirring gravy on the stove. "I haven't had normal in a long time." Elliot glanced at her. "Normal's overrated. But this is nice." They set the table with her fine china candles flickering between them. The meal was simple but perfect: roasted turkey, mashed potatoes, green beans with almonds, fresh-baked biscuits. Snow tapped against the windows as they ate, the city lights sparkling below like fallen stars. Lydia poured wine, the deep red catching the candlelight. "Tell me something true, Elliot. In this building full of people with families and invitations, does it ever bother you not being asked to a single holiday party?" He set down his fork, considering. The wine had loosened something in him, or maybe it was her, the way she looked at him without pity, but genuine curiosity. "I'm used to it," he admitted. "My skin doesn't exactly match their family photos on the mantel." Lydia's gaze held his steady and unflinching. She reached for the wine bottle, refilling his glass without asking, her fingers brushing his briefly. The touch lingered in the air between them, unspoken, but felt. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in quiet white. Inside, for the first time in years, neither of them felt alone. The city had gone quiet under a blanket of fresh snow, the kind of silence that only Christmas Eve could bring to Minneapolis. Streetlights cast golden halos on the untouched white, and from the upper floors of Winter Pines, the world below looked like a distant dream. Elliot's snow globe. Elliot's phone lit up just as he finished washing the last dish from their impromptu dinner. The message was simple, unmistakable. "If you have any wishes left unspoken, meet me on the rooftop. Lydia." He stared at the screen, heart thudding harder than the wind against his window. The rooftop was residents only, a private terrace no one used in winter. But Lydia wasn't just any resident. He pulled on his coat, grabbed the tin of cookies she'd given him the night before, and took the elevator to the top. The doors opened to a rush of frigid air, but the terrace had been transformed. Strings of warm white lights draped the railing, a portable fire pit crackled in the center, casting dancing shadows on the snow-dusted furniture. Lydia sat on a cushioned bench near the flames, wrapped in a thick red sweater that matched the glow on her cheeks. 2 steaming mugs of cocoa sat on the small table beside a plate of the cookies they'd baked together earlier. She looked up as he approached, snowflakes catching in her dark hair like stars. "You came?" she said softly, as if she'd half expected him not to. Wouldn't miss it, Elliot replied, handing her the tin. Figured Santa might want these back. Lydia smiled, a real one, unguarded, and patted the seat beside her. He sat the heat from the fire pit, chasing away the chill. The city sprawled below them, lights twinkling through the falling snow like a million distant promises. They sipped cocoa in comfortable silence, at first the rich chocolate warming him from the inside. Snow muffled everything, creating a cocoon where the rest of the world felt far away. I've been thinking about your wish, Lydia said, finally staring into the flames. The one on the paper. Elliot's grip tightened on his mug. Yeah. She turned to face him, her eyes reflecting the firelight, vulnerable in a way he'd never seen. I used to think women like me were meant to be alone. Strong, successful. It comes with a price. People say things. Cold Asian boss lady. Too ambitious for a real relationship. No man can handle her. After the divorce, it got worse. Like I was the problem for wanting more than being someone's trophy. Her voice cracked, just slightly, the words spilling out like they'd been bottled too long. This Christmas I told myself I'd be fine alone. Another year in a big empty penthouse. But then I saw you always working, always kind, never asking for anything. And I thought, maybe I'm tired of fine. Elliot set his mug down, the snow crunching softly under his boots as he shifted closer. The air between them felt charged, heavy, with everything unsaid. I've spent my whole life feeling like I don't belong, he said quietly. Poor kid from the north side, fixing things for people who barely see me. Black man in a building full of folks who clutch their purses a little tighter in the elevator. I've been alone so long I forgot what it feels like to be wanted for me, not what I can fix. He reached out his hand, finding hers in the space between them. Her fingers were cold, but they curled around his without hesitation, warm and real. You're not alone tonight, he whispered. Lydia's breath hitched. She searched his face, eyes glistening not from the cold but something deeper. I don't want to be the ice queen anymore, not with you. The words hung in the air, fragile and true. Slowly she leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. Elliot froze for a heartbeat, then wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. She fit perfectly against him, like she'd always belonged there. Snow continued to fall soft and relentless, covering the terrace in a fresh layer of white. The fire crackled, cocoa steamed forgotten on the table, and for the first time in years, neither of them felt the weight of the world pressing down. They stayed like that, wrapped in shared silence, the kind that didn't need words. Lydia's hand stayed in his, her breathing steady against his chest. Elliot closed his eyes, the ache he'd carried for so long easing just a fraction. Whatever came next tomorrow, the whispers, the judgments, didn't matter in this moment. Tonight, under the snow and stars, they had found something rare. Each other. The days after Christmas blurred into a quiet rhythm that felt almost too good to be real. Elliot and Lydia found excuses to see each other: morning coffee in the lobby, late-night checks on the building's heat during the endless cold snaps. They walked the snow-covered paths around winter pines, hands brushing, then holding breaths, mingling in the frost. For the first time, Elliot didn't feel invisible. Lydia laughed more, her sharp edges softening when she was with him. But the building noticed. It started with sidelong glances in the elevator, whispers that stopped when they entered the mailroom. A neighbor from the 15th floor, a silver-haired woman who'd always been polite, now averted her eyes when Elliot passed. By New Year's Eve, the rumors had spread like melting ice across the floors. She's just slumming it, one resident murmured in the gym, loud enough for Elliot to hear as he fixed a treadmill. CEO with the black maintenance guy, it'll burn out fast. Another laughed. Probably a charity case, or midlife crisis. Elliot kept his head down, tightening bolts harder than necessary, the words sinking into him like cold seeping through cracks. He'd heard versions of this his whole life, too dark for their world, too poor for respect. But now it hurt differently, because it touched Lydia too. Her phone buzzed constantly that week. Calls from New York, texts from old friends in Silicon Valley. Her mother was the worst, a video call that left Lydia pacing, her penthouse face pale. You're a Kim, her mother snapped in clipped English. CEO of a Fortune 500 company. You cannot date some blue-collar black man from the basement? What will people say? Society isn't ready for this. You'll ruin everything you've built. Lydia's voice shook when she recounted it to Elliot, later standing in his small apartment for the first time. She said I'd be a joke, that no one would take me seriously if I paraded around with someone like you. Elliot leaned against his counterarms crossed to hide the tremor in his hands. The space felt smaller with her in it, her designer coat draped over his worn couch, the scent of her perfume mixing with his simple coffee. She's not wrong, he said quietly. People are already talking. I hear it every day. Lydia's eyes flashed. I don't care what they think. But he saw the toll the way she checked her phone, less the faint strain around her smile. Friends messaged warnings. Girl interracial is fine for fun but serious. With a technician, society's not there yet. You'll lose investors' board respect. One evening at a resident New Year's party in the common lounge, elegant with crystal flutes and a jazz trio, Lydia appeared on Elliot's arm. She wore a sleek black dress that hugged her figure hair swept up, looking every bit the powerhouse she was. Elliot in his best button-down, feeling the stares like pinpricks. Conversations hushed as they entered. A group of women near the bar whispered, one saying just loud enough, "Bold move. But how long till she trades up?" Lydia's grip tightened on his elbow, her chin lifting defiantly. She introduced him proudly. "This is Elliot Hayes, the man who keeps this entire building running," pulling him into conversations about tech trends and city developments. He held his own, surprising them with insights from years of hands-on work, but the undercurrent remained curiosity laced with judgment. Later alone in the elevator, riding down to his floor, Lydia turned to him. The doors closed, sealing them in mirrored walls that reflected their uneasy expressions. "Elliot," she said softly, "if this is too much, the stairs, the calls, my mother, you can walk away. I won't blame you. I've been alone before. I can do it again." He looked at her, the woman who'd cracked open his world in a single holiday season. The ache in his chest wasn't just hurt. It was fear of losing this fragile thing they'd found. "All my life," he said, voice low, "I've wanted someone to choose me, not despite what I am, a black man scraping by fixing other people's messes, but because of who I am. The guy who shows up, who cares, who sees you when no one else does." He took her hands, thumbs tracing her knuckles. "If you're asking if the pressure hurts, yeah, it does. But walking away, that would hurt more." Lydia's eyes welled, but she blinked it back, stepping closer until her forehead rested against his. "Then we face it together." The elevator dinged at his floor doors, sliding open to the quiet hallway. They stepped out hand in hand, the whispers from above fading behind them. Snow fell outside the windows, soft and steady as they walked toward his door, not hiding, not anymore. Whatever storms came next, they would weather them side by side. That winter reshaped everything. Lydia turned down the San Francisco offer, a corner office with a bay view and a salary that could buy small countries. The board was stunned. Her mother was furious. But when the recruiter asked why, Lydia's answer was simple: "I'm needed here." She redirected part of her foundation's funds into a community project right in the North Side neighborhoods Elliot knew best. An old warehouse became a bright workshop, art classes for kids who couldn't afford supplies, music on Tuesdays, coding on Thursdays. Elliot ran the maker space, teaching children how to fix broken toys, build birdhouses from scrap-turned junk into something useful. The kids called him Mr. E, crowding around him with wide eyes and sticky with glue. For the first time, he wasn't just fixing rich people's problems. He was building something that lasted. Lydia showed up most afternoons in jeans and sneakers, hair in a messy bun, helping with paints or spreadsheets. Residents from Winter Pines started whispering again, but differently now. Some came to volunteer. Others sent donations. A few even apologized. On the last night of the year, they threw a small party in the building's lower lounge, the one usually reserved for board meetings and wine tastings. This time it was different. Folding tables stretched across the room, covered in mismatched dishes. Kids from the workshop ran between legs. Elderly neighbors from Evergreen brought cookies. The jazz trio was replaced by a playlist Elliot made, old soul mixed with Korean hip-hop Lydia loved. Elliot stood at the hot chocolate station, ladling marshmallows into cups, sleeves rolled up, laughing as a little girl asked if he was really dating the pretty boss lady. Lydia moved through the crowd in a simple red sweater dress, no Santa hat this year, just a soft smile that reached her eyes when she looked at him. Near midnight, she found him by the window, snow falling thick and silent outside. "Still playing Santa?" he asked, nodding at the folded paper she slipped into his coat pocket. Lydia's fingers lingered on the fabric. One last wish. He unfolded it later when the countdown began and the room erupted in cheers. "I wish every Christmas from now on you'll hold my hand where everyone can see." Elliot looked across the room. Lydia stood near the tree watching him, eyes bright with something fearless. He crossed the floor in 5 strides, took her face in his hands, and kissed her slow, certain in front of every staring resident, every whispered doubt, every judgment that had tried to keep them small. The room went quiet for a heartbeat, then exploded in applause and laughter, and a few surprised gasps that melted into smiles. When they pulled apart, foreheads still touching, Lydia whispered, "Granted." Outside, snow kept falling, covering the city in fresh white. Inside, Elliot held her close as the new year began, knowing the real miracle wasn't the lights, or the snow, or even the kiss. It was staying, choosing each other when the world said not to, daring to love out loud. And in the years that followed every Christmas, they kept that promise, hands intertwined under strings of lights, proving that magic wasn't in wishes granted. It was in the courage to keep them.